You're listening to The Stephen Torriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. I was brainstorming earlier about this Ukraine funding that's getting ready to be the talk of the town, either this week or the next week. Yes, believe it or not, the United States Congress feels we are in a position to fund another war. I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that the American taxpayer essentially funds this military-industrial complex. We pay the bills, we keep the lights on. So anyways, I was brainstorming earlier about this, and I made some very eerie connections. And over the past couple weeks, the Biden administration has been really hostile towards Israel. And last week, Joe Biden has threatened consequences if Israel doesn't change its conduct when it comes to war. And I started thinking about this while simultaneously we have Republicans and Democrats in Congress drooling to get more aid to Ukraine. So think about this. This administration wants to fund Ukraine in a war they're clearly losing, and they want to defund Israel in a war they're clearly winning. This is what happens in an illegitimate administration. For the last 3.5 years, it seems like this is exactly what would happen with an administration that was elected illegitimately. I'm sorry. I just don't see the American people making this bad of a mistake. Voting for Joe Biden, without a doubt, is a huge mistake. And I just don't see the American people doing that. I mean, granted, in every election, you're going to have, in every election, it's going to be close. You're going to have millions here, millions on that side. But it just feels like the wrong administration was elected into office. If you call that an election, I mean, come on. If you listen to this show, you know we've gone through this topic over and over and over again. The 2020 election was the most bizarre, riddled with irregularities, illegalities, and the exact opposite of a safe and free and fair election. Let's just put it that way. But since then, it really has felt like it's been an illegitimate administration with all the mistakes, all the destruction, and all the wars and conflict and division. It just seems like the exact wrong administration was put in power in 2020. And so it's just like everything else in society today is everything is backwards. It's like opposite world. The heroes are villains and the villains are heroes. And this is no different. The way this administration and the way this government, the way this Congress is handling these two conflicts, that somehow the American people are on the hook for funding. They're funding the exact wrong ones. And so the war in Ukraine, let's just face it, I think everybody needs to admit it, Ukraine is not going to beat Russia in a war. There's been hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians sent to their deaths, and Russians. So hundreds of thousands of people dead in this war. And the United States wants to send it another $60 billion? For what? To send more meat to the slaughterhouse? And on the other side of that coin, you have this administration wanting to cut back on funding for Israel, like missiles and bombs and ammo, beans and bullets, essentially, when they should actually be funding Israel to the teeth so that they can actually finish this and get it done with. This is the problem. So they want to continuously and endlessly fund a war that they know isn't going to turn out the way that they are claiming, and they want to defund and cut back on the war that is clearly winning. This is very bizarre to me. Very bizarre behavior, and I really don't understand this obsession with funding for Ukraine. But that's just what I was thinking about before I came onto the show. I was, these are those trains of thought that I go throughout the day. And most of the time I write them down, and in this case I did. And I'm like, my God, they want to send another $60 billion to this war in Ukraine. Folks, we are in, 2 years into this war? A war they said would be over in 6 weeks? And they want to send another $60 billion. So we're going to go over the money that is being sent over to Ukraine real quick. So I looked into this. And believe it or not, I found this article from the Council of Foreign Relations. It says, how much aid has the U.S. sent Ukraine? Here are the 6 charts. And so I'm going through this article, and I'm trying to spot this chart. And this is actually quite shocking. So how much aid has the U.S. sent to Ukraine? So bilateral aid committed to Ukraine between January 22 and January 24. So 2 years, exactly 2 years. So 2% for humanitarian. That's $1.6 billion, which goes towards emergency food assistance, healthcare, refugee support, and other humanitarian aid. Direct financial aid is at 35%, which is $26.4 billion. And then the rest is military, which is $46.3 billion, 62%, which is security assistance, which is $18 billion, weapons and equipment, $23 billion, grants and loans for weapons and equipment, $4.5 billion. Much of the aid has gone toward providing weapon systems, training, and intelligence the Ukrainian commanders need to defend against Russia, which has one of the world's most powerful militaries. Again, whose idea was it to continuously fund this meat grinder? That's what I want to know, because that's where the problem is. So Democrats are at it again, using the abortion topic to win elections. And, I have to wonder, is there something else other than abortion that Democrats actually care about? I mean, it is so weird to me that it's this abortion thing that decides whether a Democrat votes or not. This is very bizarre. And a ruling out of Arizona today was actually, I got to admit, it's actually quite shocking. And Democrats, let me tell you, they let no crisis go to waste. So you're going to be hearing in the next couple weeks, you're going to be hearing weeks and months into this election of nonstop abortion. This is the tactic Democrats use. Democrats cannot run on their ideas. They cannot run on their votes. They cannot run on their voting record or their policies or their ideas. Why? Because they suck. And so what they have to do is they have to create a boogeyman. And abortion has been the Democrats' boogeyman for a long time, winning them a lot of elections. Unfortunately, because we have so many low information voters, and abortion seems to be their number one topic. Why? I have no idea, folks. I really don't get it. What is so important about having the ability to kill a baby? This, to me, I'll never understand, but I will tell you this. History's going to look back on these days the way that we look back on some of the most egregious stuff mankind did in the past, like slavery, the Holocaust. I'm telling you, they're going to look back on these years in this country on abortion, and they're going to be like, what the hell was this country thinking? Allowing abortion up to 9 months after birth, whatever it is. Who in their right mind wants to fight for the right to kill a baby? I don't get it. I really don't. And I'm kind of sick and tired of the talking point that this is only a woman's issue. This is not just a woman's issue. A man has a right to speak about this issue as well. I know this is going to drive the lefties nuts, but it's true. Why? Because women can't have a baby without a man. And so, at the very least, a man is a man is at least allowed to speak on half of this in this conversation. And so, Arizona, today, the Supreme Court dropped a huge ruling. And as you could imagine, and as expected, the Democrats never let a crisis go to waste. And so every single leftist media outlet, the Pravda media is what we like to call them on this show, has just splattered the headlines with Arizona Supreme Court rules a near total abortion ban from 1864. So you can see the headlines. You see the anger in the headlines. You see the despair. You see the sheer fear mongering in the headlines. And so this is what they're going to ride on to try and win the election in Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are determining the future of the country and its people on whether a woman can get an abortion or not at 9 months or 6 months or 3 months, then we have some serious issues. These are first world problems. There is no doubt. When these third world nations, when they finally have elections that are free and fair, which is very rare, by the way, and we're starting to look more and more like those countries, but I digress. I guarantee you the last thing they're thinking about is, I'm going to go to the voting booth to vote for women's rights to abortion. That, I assure you, is not on top of the priority list for third world nations. This is a first world problem. We have millions and millions of American voters that go vote for the president or for Democrats. That's it. They only vote for Democrats. So Democrats must use abortion to get votes. Unfortunately, they completely ignore their record. They completely ignore their policies. They completely ignore their ideas. How about this? I got a challenge for you. When you're watching the debates for governors and so on and so forth throughout this election, senators and all this, when you're going through these debates in every state, you're going to hear this news, and we're going to talk about it on the show. When there's actual newsworthy debates and stories about senators and so on and so forth. But one thing that you'll notice is that Democrats never talk about their ideas. They never talk about their voting records, and most of all, they never talk about the policies they want to implement. The only thing they can run on is fear. That's it. And unfortunately, it works. It works for a lot of people because the country's just filled with low information voters. And so this article today, which is on every single headline, every single Pravda headline, this is by NBC News. This just came out an hour ago by hat tip to Adam Edelman and Alex Tibet. The Arizona Supreme Court ruled Tuesday that a 160-year-old near-total abortion ban still on the books in the state is enforceable, a bombshell decision that adds the state to the growing list of places where abortion care is effectively banned. This is the problem with all these outlets. They never say why. What is it that is making abortions essentially banned in these states? What is it? They never give details, ever. They just come up with the most scary words and scary phrases they can think of. And that's what they put in their article. But they don't say why or when or how. Nothing like that. They just say a near total abortion ban is enforceable. Now, that sounds kind of scary, don't it? And that's why they put it in the headlines. This is what I'm saying. This is headline news. This is how we do it. We have the headline informers. That's what we have. Millions of people in this country are informed 100% strictly by headlines. That is it. And so when you have places like NBC writing headlines that say Arizona Supreme Court rules a near total abortion ban from 1864 is enforceable, that sounds pretty scary, don't it? And that's what they do. But when you read down into the story, then it starts to reveal that thing called truth, and facts start to reveal themselves. So the ruling allows an 1864 law in Arizona to stand that made abortion a felony punishable by 2 to 5 years in prison for anyone who performs one or helps a woman obtain one. The law, which is codified in 1901 and again in 1913, outlaws abortion from the moment of conception, but includes an exception to save a woman's life. Huh. So isn't that exactly what Democrats want? I mean, that's what they claim they want, right? I mean, that's one of the arguments that they make, is like, oh, Republicans, they don't even want abortion even if the mother's going to die. Like, that's what they say. You hear this all the time when you debate this issue. And look, the abortion issue is a really gray issue. We've talked about it before on the show. It's a very gray issue, and there's nuances to it, just like everything, but there's more nuances in the abortion issue than a lot of other topics. And so what I seem to do is I seem to find myself in the middle. I'm not willing to go all the way to the right, and I'm not willing to go all the way to the left. I think the middle, like 15 weeks, which is what most of the world does. Most of the world handles this situation by just putting a 12 to 15-week ban, and that's it. And that sounds pretty reasonable to me. I don't see why anybody, any woman, should have the ability to kill a baby when it has a heartbeat, when it has a nervous system, when it can feel pain, when it moves around, has fingernails, and like that to me is a human baby. And in some states, it is considered a human, because if a person murders a woman and she's pregnant, that person gets charged with 2 lives for 2 murders. And so should it not be the same for abortions? This is what I'm saying. This is what makes this issue so nuanced. While at the same time, I don't think any state or any government should have a say-so in what a woman does with her body. However, Democrats claim they're pro-choice, but in reality they're not. Because what about the baby's choice? Does the baby not get a choice? To me, pro-choice would be like, hey, I think this baby, if we asked it, if it wanted to live, I'm pretty sure it would say yes. You know, so isn't that giving the baby a choice? That's how I look at it. Unfortunately, Democrats, in order to get to the conclusion that they do, they have to perform this mental gymnastics that, frankly, I'll never understand, just to get to the conclusion that it's okay to kill a baby. But, folks, it's not. And I'm telling you, history is going to look back on these days as a very, very dark time in this country. And I think some reasonable laws on the books is the best thing to do. I don't think there should be an all-out ban on abortion from moment of conception, but I don't think there should be, I don't think there should be abortions at, 9 months, 8 months, 7 months, 6 months. No, that's just ridiculous. And so what do? We find ourselves in a little bit of a pickle, don't we? And so the best thing to do in this situation is just to compromise. You must compromise on situations like this. It's just like a happy marriage. Sometimes both sides have to give a little and take a little. That's it. And in this case, 15 weeks seems to be the happy medium. So that's it. 15 weeks, good. And not only that, but I think the Dobbs decision was a good decision. I really do. And on a constitutional standpoint, because I don't think the federal government, nor the framers of this country, nor the framers of the Bill of Rights or the framers of the Constitution would agree that abortion should be up to the federal government. I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with civil rights. I don't think abortion has anything other than the baby's life, other than protecting the baby. Yeah, I could see that. But I don't think the federal government should be in the business of abortion. And so the Dobbs decision essentially left it up to the states, which is federalism. This is exactly how the system was designed. And so that each state can make up its own laws when it comes to abortion. It's as simple as that. It is the easy way. It is the compromising way. And I think it's the way that yields the best results. Period. That's what I think. Is it easy? No. Is there gray areas? Of course, the whole issue is a gray issue. And so this is why the people need to take it up with their states. It's a lot easier that way. And I will tell you this. The reason why Democrats in Congress and politicians, Democrat politicians, want the abortion issue to be a federal issue is so that they can run on it in the presidential elections. They can run on it in their senatorial elections. That's what they do, man. These people don't care about the American citizen. They only care about themselves. How to keep and retain power is all they care about. You can't sit there and tell me Chuck Schumer actually cares about his constituents. I bet the guy hasn't done a town hall in 30 friggin' years. So the thing is this should be left up to the people. The people should decide their own state's laws. That's it. And so I think the Dobbs decision was the correct decision. Now, back into this abortion ban, this near total abortion ban. So the Civil War era law, enacted a half a century before Arizona even gained statehood, was never repealed, and an appellate court ruled last year that it could remain on the books as long as it was, quote-unquote, harmonized with a 2022 law, leading to substantial confusion in Arizona regarding exactly when, during a pregnancy, abortion was outlawed. The decision, which could shutter abortion clinics in the state, effectively effectively undoes a lower court's ruling that stated that a more recent 15-week ban from March 2022 superseded the 1864 law. So they had a 15-week abortion ban. Okay, so they were in a good spot. The Arizona Supreme Court said it would put its decision on hold for 14 days, writing that it would send the case back to the lower court so that the court could consider, quote-unquote, additional constitutional challenges that haven't yet been cleared up. Attorney General Chris Mayes, a Democrat, said moments after the ruling that she would not enforce the law. Let me be completely clear. As long as I am Attorney General, no woman or doctor will be prosecuted under this draconian law in this state. Adding that the decision was, quote-unquote, unconscionable and an affront to freedom. Democrats all the way up to President Joe Biden also blasted the ruling. Of course, Democrats never let a crisis go to waste. So the decision from the Arizona Supreme Court concerned a law that was on the books long before Arizona achieved statehood. It outlaws abortion from the moment of conception, except when necessary to save the life of the mother, and it makes no exceptions for rape or incest. Doctors prosecuted under the law could face fines and prison terms of 2 to 5 years. Planned Parenthood, Arizona, the plaintiff, and other abortion rights supporters argue that the 1864 ban, which had sat dormant for decades, had essentially been overtaken by years of subsequent Arizona laws regulating and limiting abortion, primarily a 2022 law banning abortion after the 15th week of pregnancy. But the territorial era ban was never repealed, and the Arizona Supreme Court said Arizona's legislature had not created a right to abortion when it passed the 15-week ban, because of the federal right to abortion in Roe v. Wade had now been overturned. Nothing in federal or state law prevented Arizona from enforcing the near-total ban, the court wrote. Because the federal constitutional right to abortion that overrode subsection 13-3603 no longer exists, the statute is now enforceable. The court's four-person majority wrote, using the statutory number of the 1864 ban. Justice Bill Montgomery recused himself from the case after the publication of news reports that he had written a Facebook post saying that Planned Parenthood had participated in the greatest generational genocide known to man. I agree, and I think history is going to look back on these days as exactly that. I think history is going to look back on these days of the abortion battles and this abortion fight from Democrats and the left and the right. They're going to look back on these days as the friggin' Dark Ages. As if, how can mankind be so brutal towards innocent children? That's how history's going to remember these years. And just like I say on the show all the time, when history writes about these days, you're going to have to ask yourself the question, are you sure you're on the right side? That's how I think about this stuff. And I'm telling you, history's going to judge these days very harshly. And the people that fought for this abortion, this 9-month, this 8-month, this no limits abortion, they're going to judge those people very harshly. So the court's ruling was a stinging loss for abortion rights supporters who said it would put doctors in legal jeopardy, prompt clinics in Arizona to stop providing abortions, and force women to travel to nearby states like California, New Mexico, or Colorado to end the pregnancies. Why not just use condoms or birth control? Like, what is this obsession with abortion? It is so weird. Can women not just, can they not get on birth control? I mean, is it possible? Is it possible for them just to not get pregnant? I mean, there's multiple ways of doing it. It's almost like women are using abortion as birth control. And this is so wrong, man. So wrong. I mean, think of all those lives taken. It's got to be in the hundreds of millions by now, right? If you calculate all the abortions, not the abortions based off the mother being sick or the possibility that the mom could die giving birth, or, I mean, you just take out all that stuff, rape, incest, take out all that. Calculate how many abortions were performed solely off the notion that the mom just didn't want the baby. No, there was nothing wrong with the baby. It was just an accident or a one-night stand. Think of how many lives have been taken by abortion, if you think about it that way. So President Biden called the ban cruel and said that it was a result of the extreme agenda of Republican elected officials who are committed to ripping away a woman's freedom. Of course. This guy, you can't honestly sit there and say that this guy knows what's going on. Nobody knows who's running this country. Nobody knows what Joe Biden's talking about when he speaks. Nobody respects Joe Biden. Nobody even knows what he's doing, honestly. Millions of Arizonans will soon live under an even more extreme and dangerous abortion ban, which fails to protect women, even when their health is at risk or in tragic cases of rape or incest, he said in a statement. But that doesn't make sense because the 1864 ban says that abortion is allowed when the life of the mother is at risk. So that's a lie right there. Joe Biden lied. And I'm sure this lie is going to continue on because this is the narrative they wanted to push, folks. That's it. You know, the headlines could have said, Arizona Supreme Court establishes a 15-week abortion ban. That's it, because that's essentially what it is. And anybody that performs an abortion after 15 weeks can be prosecuted. Or the life of the mother is at risk. But that's what it is, essentially. And that's why in the headlines they have to put near total ban, because it's not a total ban. They just, it's the way they mince the words, the way they mischaracterize what is happening because they know people only read the headlines. This, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why our country is where it is today, is because people are not informing themselves. We have a disgraceful media that has chosen sides. It is partisan, and it has been weaponized, colluding with a political party, and the Democrats own 95% of the media. And so this is why we have such low information voters. Because now what people are going to do, and this is exactly what I did. I typed in Arizona abortion. That's what I typed in. And wouldn't you know it, let's go through the articles. And I'm going to do this right here behind the microphone. You got New York Times, The Guardian, PBS, NPR, AZ Central, AP News, Axios, CBS News, Washington Post, Bloomberg, Reuters, Bloomberg, ABC 10, LA Times, Wall Street Journal, NBC News, US News, ABC News, MSN, Rolling Stone, Slate.com, again, The Guardian, New York Times, and CNN. So there you go. Every single one of these outlets is left-leaning outlets, is the Pravda media. And this reminds me of something else I wanted to talk about, which was the search engine algorithms in this election. This is exactly how search engines like Google manipulate the population through algorithms, is just like this. Because normal, rational Americans, they're going to hear about this from their friends today. They're going to go home or they're going to pick up their phone at lunch and they're going to type in Arizona abortion law. And what they're going to see is the top 25 links are all left-leaning Pravda media outlets. And on every single one of these outlets, guess what the title is? Well, just for instance, here's New York Times title. Biden condemns Arizona's abortion ban as cruel and extreme. Reuters says its title is called Appeals Court Temporarily Blocks Arizona's Abortion Ban. Here is CNN. Arizona governor blasts ruling on abortion ban. New York Times. Arizona abortion ban. What we know, the New York Times. NBC News. Arizona agrees not to enforce near total abortion ban until next year. So what is the point of writing these articles? Like, what is the point of the outrage if nothing's going to happen? I see this as nothing more than a technicality. And you already have Democrats, the attorney generals, prosecutors, they're already saying that they're not going to prosecute anybody. This is a technicality. So the Supreme Court is essentially, we went through what the Supreme Court's going to do. They're going to put a stay on it for 15 days or 14 days or whatever. They're going to send it back to the courts. And then they're going to figure out something else. So it's like, okay, so big freaking deal. So now Democrats are going to campaign on this. They're going to fundraise on this. The left-wing Pravda media is going to be conducting narrative saturations with this for the next 2 weeks. This is how Democrats get votes. And in fact, it's the only way Democrats can get votes is when it comes to abortion. This is why Democrats try harder to put abortion bills or abortion amendments on or abortion proposals or bill proposals on ballots instead of running on their voting record. Like Democrat campaigns spend more money and more effort trying to get abortion proposals on ballots because that's what drives people to the voting booth. I'm serious, that's what they do. So they rely on the abortion issue to get them across, to get them votes. Instead of running on their ideas, instead of saying, hey, vote for me because, I'm against this or I'm for this. No, what they do is Republicans are trying to ban abortion, but we have an amendment on the ballot that you can stop them. Make sure you go vote to save women's rights. That's what they do, man. So they specifically try and get amendments or certain amendments or proposals on bills to get voters to the voting booth. But they never have to run on their disastrous policies or their ideas or their voting record. This is why, man, I'm telling you, I will never vote for another Democrat in my entire life. It's it. And honestly, I don't even like Republicans either. So I'm here stuck. I like Donald Trump. I like where the Republican Party's going. I think if we can get rid of the rhinos, I think we'd be fine. But the way Democrats conduct themselves and the way they're colluding with the media, this whole relationship, this symbiotic relationship between the Democrat Party and the media has been so damaging to this country because you essentially have state-run media and there is limitless funds, there's an endless amount of resources, and their number one strategy is to misinform as many people as possible and try and trick them with headlines in order to get their vote. That's the Democrats' mission, instead of running on their policies and ideas. So this is what's going on. So really, you're going to hear about all this week and next week and probably in the next coming months up until this election. And it really doesn't mean anything. It is a technicality out of the Supreme Court for 14 days. Women can't get abortions after 15 weeks. That's it. Or unless it's going to risk the life of the mother. I mean, that sounds pretty damn good to me. You know what that means? That means for 14 days, there's going to be a whole lot of lives saved. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. Sorry this had to be a quick kind of weird episode. I was just kind of piecing it together today. Kind of ran out of time. I've been working on the website. If you want to support the show, you can download this podcast on all major podcast platforms. If you want to follow the show on Rumble. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at steventorielloshow@gmail.com. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.